Many people today are troubled not by storms of nature, but by the storms created by other people, words that cut, actions that drain, presence that poisons. You call them toxic people, but I ask you, what gives them this power? Is it their voice, their judgment, their behavior? No, it is the permission you give them to enter your mind. Today, I will share one practice, one simple yet powerful shift. If you do this once, with clarity and strength, these people will no longer touch your peace, not because they change, but because you do. Let us begin. In the journey of self-mastery, one of the most profound skills a person can learn is the ability to set boundaries without aggression, without drama, and without the need to explain or justify them. This is what it means to set silent boundaries. It is not about confrontation, nor about loud declarations or visible lines drawn in the sand. It is about an internal decision that resonates through your actions, your presence, and your energy. When you set a silent boundary, you are not trying to change the behavior of others. You are changing the access they have to you. Toxic people thrive on reaction. They look for weakness, not in your words, but in your response. They study how you allow them to affect you. The more you explain yourself, the more you try to convince or argue, the more they feed on the energy you give them. Silence, on the other hand, confuses them. Distance starves them. Calm detachment weakens their grip. This is why silent boundaries are powerful, because they are not about offense or defense. They are about alignment. You decide what is acceptable in your space, and you act accordingly. You do not announce it, you embody it, and when you embody it, there is no need to speak, because your energy says what words cannot. Setting a silent boundary begins with awareness. You must first recognize the patterns not just in others, but in yourself. How do you usually respond when someone disrespects you? Do you shrink? Do you lash out? Do you feel the need to fix the situation or justify your feelings? All of these are reactions. All of them signal to the other person that you are still within their game. The first shift happens when you choose to step out of the game entirely. You do this not with anger, but with clarity, not with resistance, but with stillness. When you feel the urge to respond, you pause. When you feel the tension rising, you breathe. And when you feel the familiar pull into emotional chaos, you remind yourself, I do not owe my peace to anyone. This is the foundation of the silent boundary. Once this awareness becomes consistent, your behavior begins to change. You stop answering every message. You stop explaining why you need space. You stop justifying your choices. People who are used to manipulating your reactions may become uncomfortable. They may push harder. They may accuse you of being cold or distant. But this is not a reflection of your wrongdoing. It is a sign that your boundary is working. It takes strength to remain calm when provoked. It takes discipline to stay quiet when your ego wants to be heard. But this restraint is not weakness. It is power, because power is not always loud. True power often sits in silence, confident and unmoved. And when toxic people realize they can no longer reach you through the old channels, they begin to fade, not because you fought them, but because you stopped feeding them. Another important aspect of silent boundaries is understanding that they are not meant to punish others. They are not walls built from hate, but doors built from self-respect. You are not shutting people out to harm them. You are closing the door to protect your own energy. This is why the boundary must be silent, because if it comes from ego, it invites conflict. But if it comes from clarity, it invites peace. You may find that some people walk away from your life once you begin to implement this. Let them, because the ones who respect your silence will stay. They will understand that your distance is not rejection, it is reflection. And in that reflection, the truth of the relationship is revealed. This approach also cultivates self-trust. Every time you choose not to engage in toxicity, you are telling yourself, I am worthy of peace. I am in control of how I feel. I do not need to win battles that do not belong to me. With time, this builds a quiet confidence that does not need to prove itself to anyone. Setting silent boundaries also shifts your attention inward. Instead of focusing on how others treat you, you focus on how you treat yourself. You begin to ask different questions. Is this person aligned with my values? Does this interaction serve my growth? Am I compromising my peace for temporary comfort? These questions lead to answers that strengthen your inner world. And when your inner world is strong, the outside world loses its power over you. Detaching your emotions from someone else's behavior is a form of inner liberation. It is not about becoming cold, emotionless, or indifferent. Rather, it is about choosing where to invest your emotional energy and reclaiming your power from the hands of those who do not handle it with care. Too often, we let others dictate how we feel. A single comment, a passive-aggressive tone, or an act of disrespect can spiral into hours or days of inner turmoil. The truth is, these reactions are not always caused by what others do, but by what we make their behavior mean about us. When someone treats you poorly, the immediate tendency is to take it personally. The mind begins weaving narratives. They don't respect me. I'm not good enough. I must have done something wrong. These stories are not facts. They are interpretations shaped by past experiences, insecurities, and the deep desire to be accepted. Detaching emotionally means becoming aware of this process and breaking the automatic link between external behavior and internal suffering. Toxic people, in particular, thrive on your emotional investment. They know how to provoke, how to manipulate, and how to keep you in a loop of reaction. The more you react, the more they control the script. And every time you allow their behavior to define your mood, you give them access to your peace. Detachment is not about not caring. It is about caring wisely. It is about seeing clearly that their words, actions, or choices are a reflection of them, not of you. When you begin to detach, the first thing you notice is the emotional gap between stimulus and response. You start to realize that just because someone behaves a certain way, you are not required to feel a certain way. You create a space between what happens and how you choose to respond. In that space lies your freedom. In that space, you find your true power. Emotional detachment does not mean you stop feeling. It means you stop being controlled by feelings that others create within you. It's a shift from being reactive to being responsive. You don't suppress your emotions, but you begin to examine them with curiosity. Why did this trigger me? What fear or wound is being activated? Is this about them, or is this something unresolved in me? This level of self-inquiry brings clarity and reduces the emotional grip that toxic people have over your life. One of the biggest traps is assuming responsibility for other people's moods, choices, or happiness. You are not responsible for how others choose to act. You are only responsible for how you choose to show up. Emotional detachment teaches you to draw this line with compassion and strength. When someone lashes out at you, it does not mean you are wrong. When someone withdraws their affection, it does not mean you are unworthy. When someone criticizes you, it does not mean you are broken. Their behavior is a projection of their own inner state. Detachment allows you to see this clearly and not absorb what isn't yours. This practice also demands maturity. It is easier to blame others for how we feel. It is harder to own our emotions, to sit with them, and to rise above the drama. But maturity brings emotional sovereignty. You become grounded in your own truth. You stop giving your power away to people who do not know how to treat it. And slowly, the emotional chaos begins to settle. The same words that once hurt you lose their sting. The same behaviors that once triggered you become irrelevant, not because they have changed, but because you have. In relationships, whether personal, professional, or social, emotional detachment becomes a form of protection and clarity. You no longer base your decisions on guilt, fear, or a need for approval. You don't tolerate mistreatment just to avoid conflict. You understand that you can be kind without being weak, firm without being harsh, and distant without being unloving. Detachment is not withdrawal, it is balance. It is standing in your center and choosing peace over chaos, presence over reaction. This doesn't mean you never engage with difficult situations. It means you engage from a place of clarity rather than confusion. When a toxic person tries to bait you, you don't fall into the trap. When they use guilt, silence, or aggression to control you, you see through it. You don't react emotionally, you respond with grounded awareness. And sometimes the most powerful response is no response at all. The more you practice detachment, the more you discover that your inner world is not a playground for others. You become a guardian of your emotional space. You choose who enters, how long they stay, and what kind of energy you allow. This does not make you selfish, it makes you wise. Emotional detachment is not a wall, it's a filter. It doesn't isolate you from others, it connects you to yourself. With time, detachment becomes a lifestyle. You stop chasing validation, you stop fearing rejection, you stop needing others to behave a certain way in order for you to feel okay. You realize that peace is not something others can give or take from you. It is something you cultivate by no longer tying your worth to their behavior. You move through life with a quieter mind, a steadier heart, and a stronger sense of self. Choosing your presence like a warrior chooses his stance is about intentionality. It is about realizing that your energy, your time, and your focus are not random, unlimited forces to be scattered in all directions. Just as a warrior does not enter every battlefield, you must not enter every conversation, every conflict, or every situation with the same level of availability. Presence is power. Where you place it, how you hold it, and what you allow it to interact with determines not just your peace, but your strength. A warrior does not stumble into combat. He watches. He reads the environment. He decides when to step forward and when to stay back. His stance is not just physical, it is mental and emotional. In the same way, your presence must be guarded. You must ask yourself regularly, where is my energy going? Who is receiving it? What is it feeding, and is it worth the cost? Toxic people often seek to invade your presence. They want your attention, your reaction, your emotional investment. They don't always come in loud or aggressive forms. Sometimes they wear the mask of familiarity or even need, but their impact is the same. They drain you. Choosing your presence means recognizing this early. It means being selective, not out of arrogance, but out of wisdom. You understand that not everyone deserves access to you, because access to you is valuable. There is a quiet discipline in becoming intentional with your presence. You stop showing up just because you're expected to. You stop pouring into people who only take. You stop being emotionally available to those who don't respect that availability. Like a warrior who holds his ground with precision, you begin to hold your space with clarity. You show up where your values are honored. You speak where your voice carries weight. You engage where your energy is met with mutual respect. This level of self-awareness also means recognizing when you are overextending. Many people exhaust themselves trying to be present everywhere, for everyone, in every situation at all times, but presence spread too thin becomes diluted. The warrior knows that even strength has its limits. To stand tall in one place often means stepping away from others. It is not neglect, it is strategy. When you choose your presence with intention, you also begin to refine your sense of purpose. You are no longer drawn into meaningless debates, small dramas, or energy traps. You see them coming, and you choose differently. You keep your energy grounded in your own center rather than being pulled into the turbulence of others. This is not about being cold. It is about being focused. Your presence becomes something that brings calm, clarity, and direction, not confusion or chaos. Another key aspect of choosing your presence is learning when to retreat. The warrior does not view retreat as defeat. He views it as recalibration. You do not always have to explain your absence. You do not need to justify your silence. Sometimes the most powerful move is to step away, regroup, and return with even greater alignment. Distance is not always disconnection. It can be preservation, reflection, and the reclaiming of your own space. This mindset also cultivates self-respect. When you value your presence, others begin to value it too. You teach people how to treat you by how you treat yourself. If you constantly make yourself available to negativity, disrespect, or emotional chaos, you send a message that your presence is easy to misuse. But when you hold your space like the warrior holds his stance with focus, control, and purpose, people either rise to meet your energy or fall away. Either way, you remain grounded. To choose your presence like a warrior is to move through life with mindfulness. You do not react to every situation. You respond only when it aligns with your truth. You do not give all of yourself away. You offer it with care. You understand that your presence is a force. And just like any powerful force, it must be directed, not scattered. When you live this way, you stop being drained by the wrong people and start being energized by the right ones. So now you understand, peace is not won through louder voices or sharper words. It is claimed through clarity, discipline, and presence. When you set silent boundaries, you no longer need to announce your worth. When you detach your emotions, you stop bleeding for battles that aren't yours. When you master non-reaction, you break the very cycle that toxic people depend on. And when you choose your presence like a warrior, you walk only where your soul is respected. You do not need to fight to be free. You only need to stop giving what was never owed. Do this once, and the toxic ones will have no place left to stand. Not because they changed, but because they no longer recognize the version of you who once tolerated their chaos, and that is your power. Mastering the art of non-reaction is one of the most powerful disciplines a person can develop. In a world where provocation is constant and emotional triggers surround us, choosing not to react is a sign of true strength, not weakness. It is a conscious decision to rise above the chaos instead of becoming a part of it. Many people confuse silence or stillness with passivity, but in truth, it requires great inner control to remain unmoved when every part of you wants to react. Non-reaction is not suppression. It is transcendence. It is the ability to witness without becoming entangled. When someone speaks to you with disrespect, when a toxic person attempts to pull you into an emotional trap, your reaction is exactly what they seek. Whether it's anger, frustration, or sadness, your response becomes fuel. It validates their behavior and invites more of it. But when you meet provocation with calm, the cycle breaks, the momentum stops. You are no longer a participant in their pattern. You have stepped outside of the loop, and this is where your power truly begins. Non-reaction starts with awareness. It begins in the brief space between what is said and what you feel. Most people collapse this space instantly. They hear something offensive and immediately respond with emotion. But when you train yourself to pause, to observe instead of absorb, you shift the entire dynamic. You might still feel the surge of anger, the rise of discomfort, but you do not let it drive your behavior. You let the emotion pass through you like a wave without grabbing hold of it. This internal pause is where the transformation happens. To master non-reaction, you must also understand the difference between control and influence. You cannot control what others say or do. You can only influence how much power it holds over you. A reactive person is easily manipulated. A non-reactive person becomes unpredictable. When others cannot trigger you, they lose control over you. And this unsettles those who rely on emotional manipulation as a means of dominance. Your silence, your calm gaze, your unbothered energy, it all sends a message louder than words. You do not decide how I feel. This discipline also protects your energy. Every time you react emotionally to negativity, you drain yourself. Your peace becomes a casualty of someone else's chaos. But non-reaction is an act of self-preservation. It is a way of saying, I will not bleed for battles that are not mine. It frees you from the compulsion to argue, to defend, to explain. Not everyone deserves your attention. Not every statement deserves a response. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is nothing at all. Non-reaction is not about being passive in the face of injustice or wrongdoing. It is about choosing the right moment to act, rather than being swept away by emotion. It's the difference between impulsive reaction and intentional response. A master does not respond to every bark from a stray dog. A warrior does not enter every fight just because they are provoked. They choose when to move, and they do so from a place of clarity, not from anger or fear. Practicing non-reaction also brings a deeper understanding of yourself. When you are triggered, it reveals something unhealed within you. Instead of immediately reacting, you begin to look inward. Why did that bother me? What part of me feels threatened or exposed? These questions lead to growth. They turn each moment of potential reaction into a mirror, showing you where your work lies. The less you react, the more you begin to understand the subtle dynamics of your own mind. There is also great dignity in non-reaction. It is the quiet confidence of someone who knows their value and refuses to lower themselves. You do not need to shout to be heard. You do not need to retaliate to be strong. You simply stand in your truth and let your energy speak for you. People who thrive on conflict cannot survive in the presence of your stillness. They will either adapt or move away. Either way, you win. Over time, this way of being becomes second nature. You no longer carry the burden of other people's moods. You no longer feel the need to control external situations to maintain internal peace. You let go of the urge to be right or to prove a point. You find satisfaction in your own restraint. You realize that your silence cannot be misquoted, and your stillness cannot be shaken. Non-reaction becomes your shield and your sword, not because you are indifferent, but because you are in control.